What's up, my producer friends? I'm David with another MonsterProductions.com. Recently, I've gotten a lot of questions from producers who are struggling with trying to get a wider sounding mix. So what I want to do in this video is address this issue. I want to show you some free plugins that you can actually get, as well as a couple cool techniques that I like to use a lot to help you get like a really nice, big, fat, wide sound, especially when layering. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. All right, so the first plugin that I want to show you is a free plugin by Ozone. It's called Ozone Imager, and it's a really great plugin to help turn like a really mono signal and widen it out and just help it take up a little bit more space in the stereo field of your mix. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this real quick.
She's a lady of the midnight, lady of the midnight.
Okay, so you can obviously see that this is right down the center. There's no sort of stereo information at all. So all I have to do with this plugin is just turn on the stereoize feature, and then I can bring this up a little bit and kind of start changing the width.
She's a lady of the midnight, lady of the midnight. She's a lady of the midnight, night.
So you don't want to go too crazy with this plugin, especially if you're using this on something like a vocal where you want the vocal to sound pretty centered. You maybe just want to add a little bit of stereo shaping to kind of fill out the image, but potentially you can go super crazy.
She's a lady of the midnight, lady of the midnight. She's a lady of the midnight.
And you can see this correlation meter over here on the right hand side. So +1 is, mono compatible. When it's actually in mono, you'll see this is just hovering at 1.
She's a lady of the midnight.
So obviously that's 100% mono compatible. Now as I hit the stereoize down here, as it kind of goes into the negatives, that means that it's not going to be mono compatible. It's going to have some phasing issues. So just keep an eye on the correlation meter, and then you can actually hear, it kind of starts sounding a little phasy and a little wonky.
She's a lady of the midnight.
Kind of some weird artifacts going on there. So obviously you don't want to go that much. Probably keep it pretty subtle for a vocal.
She's a lady of the midnight, lady of the midnight.
But obviously this plugin can help a lot in making your mixes sound a lot wider. And then we can also mess with the amount. So this is going to change the character of the stereo effect a little bit. So feel free to experiment with that as well. So another cool free plugin is this plugin called Dimension Expander by X4 Records. So again, this is another similar plugin, but the way that it works, I think, is slightly different than the Ozone Imager. And when it comes to vocals, or any sort of recording that you've done in mono that you're just trying to add a little bit of stereo width to, I wouldn't necessarily use this plugin for that. I think the Ozone Imager is going to be a better bet. You can actually hear, I'll go ahead and put it on the same vocal and you'll be able to hear the difference. This is just the default settings.
She's a lady of the midnight, lady of the midnight. She's a lady of the midnight, night.
So you can hear there that it's actually starting to incorporate a little bit of a delay. Kind of sounds a little bit more like they're using the Haas effect, which essentially what that is you're taking a mono signal, you're duplicating it, and then you're panning one left and one right, and then kind of delaying them a little bit off to create this little stereo effect. Again, this sort of technique can create some phasing issues, so it's a good idea to keep an eye on your correlation meter. There is a correlation meter in Span, which is a free plugin by Voxengo. If you don't have it, definitely get it. I'll try and leave a link in the description of this video for that if you guys want to get that. But this is a really cool plugin. You can basically mess with the dry wet and then the size.
She's a lady of the midnight, lady of the midnight. She's a lady of the midnight, night.
But the Dimension Expander plugin can be really cool to use on some synths and some other elements in your mix from time to time. But to be honest, my go-to plugin in a lot of cases is actually the stock FL Studio Fruity Stereo Shaper. And this plugin can actually do quite a lot. I did a tutorial on it a while ago, so I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of this video if you guys want to check out that tutorial and find out everything that this plugin can do. But what I really like to do with this plugin is a layered technique where I'll take one layer, which is mono or centered in the mix, and then I'll take another layer, layer that on top, and then I'll take that layer and I'll add the Fruity Stereo Shaper on that layer, and then I'll use one of the stereoize presets on the stereo shaper. Again, this is sort of emulating the Haas effect, and so it's going to make that layer sound really wide and spread out, but then you're going to have the mono layer on top of it, which is going to kind of hold it all together. So I like to do this on synths, I like to do this on vocals, I like to do this on a lot of different types of elements in the mix, and I think it's just a really cool trick. And I'll go ahead and show you a quick example of this in one of these tracks that I made. This is just a little beat that I was working on a while ago, and you can kind of see. So I have some layers with the vocals going on here. This is actually in the intro, it's a little bit different. I actually have 4 layers when the chorus hits. I'll just go ahead and unmute everything and you can kind of take a listen to what it all sounds like together.
You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going. You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going. You don't need to worry.
Okay, so just these vocals, these 2 are the mono layer.
You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going.
And they already sound a little bit spread out in the mix just because I have reverb and delay going on. So they don't sound super, you know, dry, mono-centered, especially with that ping pong delay. It has this sort of side-to-side effect going on in the stereo image. Now, when we add this layer, you can really hear, this is where I have the stereo shaper on.
You don't need to worry.
And it's really spread out there. And then same with this layer here.
You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going.
But then when we add this centered one, you can kind of hear how it brings them all together.
You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going. You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going.
So you can see on here, this is the Fruity Stereo Shaper. It looks like I'm using probably StereoWise 2. No, I must have been using StereoWise 3. Yep, so I was using the StereoWise 3 preset on this one here.
You don't need to worry.
And then over here, we have the StereoWise 2 preset going on. Okay.
You don't need to worry.
So 2 slightly different presets there.
You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going. You don't need to worry, I'ma keep on going.
But you can really hear the width of both of those presets, and then it kind of takes away from what's going on in the middle. So that's why it is really important to have that mono layer centered in the mix. So all those elements together in the mix just fit really nicely. You have this really nice wide stereo image, but it's also mono compatible, and it sounds really good overall balanced throughout the stereo spectrum. So I definitely recommend that you experiment with this technique, try it out for yourself, see if you like it. If you don't have FL Studio, you can use the Dimension Expander plugin by X4 Records instead of the Fruity Stereo Shaper plugin. So anyway, I hope you guys like this quick tutorial. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. You can also sign up for one-on-one private lessons on my website if you're really struggling with anything music production related. And also feel free to join my Discord server where I do Q&As every Sunday. I'm thinking about actually switching it up a little bit, maybe doing some beat critiques, song critiques, stuff like that on Sundays as well. So that's at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of this video if you guys want to join the Discord, and I will see you guys in the next video.